It's the George Plaster Show. 30 years of the best sports talk in Middle Tennessee. Featuring Tennessee Radio Hall of Famer George Plaster, Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame coach Watson Brown, and Young Guns Billy Derrick and Michael Cindric. And now, here's your host, George Plaster.
Hello again, everybody. Welcome in. Kind of a cloudy, I guess, cloudy, kind of a gray Monday in Nashville, Tennessee. However, it is late January, and that's kind of what you expect this time of the year. So, we're not off to a very good start with the show, having some speech problems early. Let's say hello to Coach Watson Brown to get it started. Watson, how are you?
George, I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm doing good.
Watson, I thought they taught phonics and grammar at BGA and Vandy.
You just need to take my speech pill. I take a speech pill before every show.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah, speech pill.
Okay.
Well, I'll send you some.
Yeah. We'll work on that. It's interesting that some of the people that are laughing have never hosted this show. And I think, no. Watson, what would be good is maybe to let them do that.
Well,
and see how it all works out.
You can use me on that one, can't you? Because I did host for you for a few times.
Right. You didn't enjoy it, did you?
And when you came back, I said, don't want my own show, brother. No. I'll be a little sidekick here and there, but I do not want my own show. So thank you very much.
Billy, how
George,
are you today?
I am great. That I didn't mean that as that big of a cheap shot there,
Oh no,
George.
I think you did.
There's pressure on you, it's your show.
Yeah.
It's like Mahomes this weekend,
You look a little washed out over there.
Yeah,
we've got some lighting issues to work on over there.
Need to fix that.
You look like you need to get out in the sun.
I don't have the privilege of having the Greek skin complexion like you and Michael, George.
Right.
That's right.
We'll get into that in a minute. Okay, let's get serious for a second. One of the things that we want to improve as we go along is the ability for you all to interact with us. That has not been a big strength of ours. Michael, why is Billy leaving?
He's had enough. He's going to get a tan.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't think the tanning bed will make it any better. Let's get him back up here and see if this has improved anything.
No, not really.
Nope.
Need to work on that.
No, there's some lighting stuff that we got to work on. Anyway, we want you all to be able to interact with us. We've not done a very good job of that, but I can tell you, starting now, we're going to get better. Part of the reason we're going to get better is you can't get any worse. You haven't had the opportunity to really interact with us at all. So we're going to start out with baby steps. Billy, tell people what it is we're going to do today.
So, George, we're going to open up the chat room on YouTube or Twitter or Facebook, wherever you got questions. Type those into the search bar. We'd love if it was Twitter. It pops up directly on Twitter and YouTube as well. So we will get those, and we'll bring them back to you guys and see if we can get these questions answered.
Okay. So let me see if I've got this right. At 3:18, give or take, a minute or two, whatever. We will do a segment where we answer a bunch of these questions, right?
Yep. That's it, George. You got it.
Okay. And again, how is it that people, if somebody's watching this show live and they've got a question, what is it they've got to do to get the question to us?
All they got to do, George, there's a comment bar section type thing where you can type in that question, whether it's YouTube, Twitter, or Facebook. And all you got to do is type in that question. It'll come directly to me, and I'll see it, and I'll forward it over to you guys.
It's that simple.
It is that easy.
Okay. Michael.
George.
How are you over at the little boy table?
Doing well. I've been sentenced over here, so there's no escape.
You and Jimmy Johnson, it seems.
That's right. My Cowboys.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're in the headlines.
That's right.
Yeah.
Always. When are they not?
Well, they are now.
Honestly, I'm a little optimistic. I'm not saying Kellen Moore can't coach, but I think it was time for a change.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get into that.
And you think that McCarthy calling the plays will be better?
I don't know. It's going to be interesting. We'd like to hear from Watson more about head coach, but also calling the plays, what that was like. Watson, did you do that, or did you have a true offensive coordinator?
I didn't do it twice, I think. I didn't do it. Steve Sloan was my offensive coordinator 1 year at Vanderbilt. And Pat Sullivan was my play caller 1 year at UAB. So only 2 years
on it?
did I not do it as a head coach. So
what's your take on it, Watson? Just from a head coach's perspective.
I think if you handle it right, it's hard. I think it's getting harder and harder in college because all that's going on. I think the NFL, it's not that hard because you don't have all the outside stuff in the NFL that you deal with in college with recruiting, NILs. Just fundraising, just everything known to man that you have to do. So it's hard to be the coordinator and call the plays because you're gone you're not in the building all the time with different things you have to do. NFL, they don't leave the building.
Right.
They don't leave the building. They're there morning, noon, and night. And so I think it's a lot easier on the NFL. I thought it helped me in a lot of ways to be the play caller of those 30 out of 32 years, Michael. I could control the game. I could, with play calling, a lot of things I thought were positive. The negative I thought was, as a head coach, sometimes you get too conservative. I did that a little bit. And just when I think back about all those years I was a coordinator and just letting it go. And then when as a head coach, you don't want the game to get away. You're a little more conservative in certain things that I did looking back on it. But I could have taught myself to be more wide open. I think you could correct that. I don't think it's a bad thing at all in the NFL. If I was a head coach and an offensive guy, I would want to call the plays.
Yeah.
I would want it on me. I would want that on me. If I'm a defensive coach, of course, ain't no way. Bill Belichick learned that this year.
Yeah.
But if I'm an offensive coach and I grew up and been a coordinator and I've done all the pieces, and also, Michael, in the NFL now, they hire you that way. They say, well, we want to hire an offensive coach.
Exactly.
Or we want to hire a defensive coach. In college, I don't think that was ever we want a head coach. His background is not as important. But in the NFL, that's all I hear anymore.
Right.
Well, we think it's time we need to bring in an offensive guy. And so I don't know. I thought Mike did a good job back with Green Bay. I thought he did a very good job. Calling plays.
He had he had a good track record. I saw a post. There was pretty good track record when he was the guy calling plays. Green Bay was really up there. Now you're also got prime Aaron Rodgers, but they had really good offensive numbers in it.
Brett Favre more than even Aaron Rodgers.
That's right.
So,
but it was, you watch their offense and it was creative. It was open. It wasn't 3 yards in a cloud of dust. So I read where he said, as soon as I read this, Michael, he said, I miss calling plays. I said, that guy's gone.
Yep.
He's gone.
Yep.
Kellen Moore is gone. And now he'll bring in a coordinator to help him coordinate and he'll call the plays, in my opinion. Andy Reid's still calling plays. There's no doubt in my mind.
Oh, sure he is.
Shanahan's still calling plays. There ain't no doubt in my mind. So now that the Zach Taylor wasn't calling plays with the Bengals, the Eagles guy wasn't calling plays. So it's a little bit of both in the NFL still. But just to me, George, my point is, if it's on me and I'm an offensive guy and I was hired to be the head coach as an offensive guy, I would want to call the plays.
Let me ask you this. Did you ever catch a vibe in college when you were calling plays where the defensive guys said, oh, yeah, he's the head coach of the offense, but he doesn't care one way or the other about us?
You know, George,
that vibe
probably happened some, but I'm telling you, that was my number one scare. I spent so much time on the other end and with defensive players and defensive meetings. And I thought my best time was when I didn't have to just coach the quarterback by myself and I could go in a defensive meeting here and sit in the back of the room or whatever. I worked really hard at that because that's a great point. And you don't want your team to get to that. You don't want a half a team.
Yeah.
And when it was really hard, I thought was scrimmages. When you're the head coach calling plays and you're going against the defense, it's really offense against defense and scrimmages against yourselves. And I always felt real bad if the offense killed the defense that day or something, you know? And so that's why, Michael, I didn't go but one series in a scrimmage in the fall. We always had 2 scrimmages before our first game. I never, ever would go ones on ones, but one series.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want one side or the other to lose their confidence.
Right.
Or whatever. And I took that to Oklahoma, and Gary Gibbs was really against that. But I convinced him to do it, and I thought it helped. You just don't want – so we always went ones on twos, one series. You got one series, ones on ones. That way you're not creating, George, that competitive, here's the head coach doing this. And then even in the ones on ones, I would let somebody else a lot of times call those plays. So I wasn't calling it against the one defense.
I got to stop it here. Billy, rumble through the update really quick.
Well, sorry, my mic wasn't on. You guys just touched on Kellen Moore to the Chargers, so I'm sure we'll get into more of that. George, college basketball, big weekend, a lot of shakeup at least in the top 25. Purdue is still at number 1. Tennessee moves up to number 2. They jump Houston and Alabama. Houston's at 3, Bama's at 4. Houston's not at 5. That is Arizona at 5. So Tennessee with a big win. They bump up 2 spots, and we'll get into more of that, of course. George, Ben Jones, Titans center, has been named to the Pro Bowl. He will replace Creed Humphrey, who is playing in the Super Bowl with Kansas City.
I'm guessing, Watson, that he goes out there, but he does not play.
Yeah, I can't imagine he'd take that chance at his age with those concussions.
Even though
it's two-hand touch.
It's a flag football game.
Yeah.
Well, that's right. They don't even do it anymore. What am I saying? What are they doing with the linemen, by the way?
Yeah, that's a good question, Watson.
What are they doing?
They're in Hawaiian skirts.
Don't you guys, quick
around.
question, George. I know we don't need to take too much. Why wouldn't they just go out and give them 3 days and have a little banquet at the end or something, celebrate making the Pro Bowl instead of doing this?
Because they can't charge some network some money for the right
or
fleece a city into ticket sales.
Yeah, you're right.
They are the most money grubby group. This is a deal that needed to die 10 years ago. And now we're going to get to this. And I can tell you next Monday, we're going to rip that format because it's a joke. And yet they'll for about 5 more years, they'll fleece Vegas. They'll fleece some network. You're getting the Pro Bowl. They have been trying for a month to promo that piece of crap.
All right, here's my quick proposal, because I kind of like some of the skill stuff of the Pro Bowl. I think that's fun, like the accuracy stuff. Get rid of the Pro Bowl, and for the offensive and defensive linemen, just create your own little 1-hour TV show. Get them all around a campfire. Have them start telling stories. Offensive and defensive linemen with a beer in their hand around a campfire. That'd be some great conversation
with chicken wings.
Yeah.
Sponsored by
bro
Hooters.
night. Yeah.
See what I would do,
That's what we
Michael. I
hired you
would
for?
I would have them play a flag football game before the skill plays.
Oh,
I would have
think that'd be
those
great.
guys
Yeah,
playing
great.
flag football. It would be hilarious.
Yep.
The give
It
is
would
to
be
the fullback, and
absolutely
Dominic and
hilarious.
Sue.
It'd be their proudest moment. They'd be so much more happy
Oh,
to play in that.
Slamming balls in the end zone when they catch a pass. And
What a
stuff.
catch by Ben
It
Jones
would be
in the front of the
hilarious.
end zone.
Oh, I love it.
George, last piece here is some hockey news. A somber note over the weekend. Hall of Famer Bobby Hull, 12-time All-Star, 2-time Hart Trophy winner, has passed away. He was 84 years old. He was known as the Golden Jet because of his blonde hair and his speed on the ice. I didn't know him, George, but I know in the hockey circles, he's one of the best.
Oh, gosh. I think you could make the argument probably one of the 5 best all-time hockey players.
Wow.
Yeah.
Probably.
Some
Okay.
of those numbers, 12-time All-Star.
oh,
that means you played a
amazing.
while.
Yeah. So I don't think this will come as any big surprise. We're going to go back and talk about the 2 games that took place yesterday. Phillies blowout of San Francisco and why it happened, and KC's win over Cincinnati, when for all the world in the fourth quarter, it sure looked like Cincinnati was the better team, and yet they weren't able to close the deal. We'll start with the Eagles and the 49ers. That is coming up next.
How am I going to get to work? My car's totaled.
Skylar, our team is making a call right now. We'll get you a rental car. Don't worry.
That's a relief.
Call us 24/7. We're here. We're going to help.
Year number 2 of the Plaster and Friends Celebrity Bowling Night was awesome, and the reason is simple. I chose Hermitage Strike and Spare. They were amazing. Great food, great bowling, and a staff that's ready to go the extra mile. They have 5 family fun centers in the area to choose from, and for more info, go to strikeandspare.com or call them at 615-824-5665.
As the trusted premier custom home builder in Middle Tennessee, Donnelly Timmons has over 20 years of experience in the industry. Whether you're looking to build your dream home or renovate your current home, their team will ensure that every client and every remodel is unique, luxurious, and completed on time within budget. Founders Dustin Timmons and Joey Donnelly have over 25 years of construction experience in the Nashville area. Together, they have completed projects in Forest Hills, Oak Hill, Green Hills, Franklin, and Brentwood. Dustin and Joey believe that communication is the most important aspect of all construction projects. Therefore, they personally manage each project themselves and are involved in job site activities on a daily basis. Their commitment to quality and integrity has earned them an outstanding reputation among their clients. Contact them to set an appointment for a free consultation or to view some of their completed projects. Give them a call at 615-456-7983 or log on to DonnellyTimmons.com.
Well, we saw yesterday that if you have to go to your 4th string quarterback, you might be screwed. You think about how many teams could even get to 3 and live to tell about it, which the 49ers did with Brock Purdy. But when they had to go to Josh Johnson, the roof caved in. And so what everybody was looking forward to turned out to be a dud. And Philadelphia won in convincing fashion, 31-7. So, Watson, I don't think it's any surprise the first thing that you came up with.
No, just quarterback injury is the game over. I mean, what a hit. Reddick is a special player now, rushing the passer. And he came around that corner and he caught him flush perfect. And that can be a very serious injury, George. That could be career-ending injury with that ligament on that elbow right there. And hopefully he didn't tear it. I hope it can just heal on its own now. You remember Josh Allen had this. Remember in a game earlier in the year we talked about it?
Mm-hmm.
And I said then, I hope this isn't serious. Well, Josh's wasn't too bad. But I saw where Ric Flair said Purdy should have finished the game. You got to be tougher than that. I think it was Ric Flair. It was one of the wrestlers. You don't understand that. That is a very serious injury. And you can't throw if that ligament is really damaged. You can't. And the second piece to me, George, is the NFL's got to let them carry three quarterbacks.
It's absurd that this is
add
going on.
another position to carry, or put him let him be a coach unless he has to dress out. Have his stuff with him. If you're going to carry him on the road, why can't he just dress out, for God's sakes? The NFL, if they didn't learn it yesterday, we played a quarter and a half with no quarterback on national television with all kind of eyeballs watching this game. And when you're having to put McCaffrey in as a wildcat and he throws a pass, for God's sakes, it wasn't a pretty one, but it just ruined the day. You've got to carry a third quarterback. What was it with 2 games to go in the year? 64 different quarterbacks started a game. Wake up and smell the roses. You've got to add more quarterbacks to the roster.
So, Michael,
George,
do you want to know why Watson's proposal will end up passing or end up happening?
About the quarterbacks?
Mm-hmm.
Because the NFL is all about money.
Well, I'm going to take it to a new level of cynicism here.
Okay.
So these 2 games are an opportunity for what I would call little mini Super Bowl numbers.
Sure.
Okay. Better than a week ago, not to Super Bowl level, but really big time numbers.
Right.
And Billy, I don't know if you get a chance in a few minutes to look up whatever the early numbers are, but here is what is, I think, going to happen. Fox is going to pitch an absolute fit.
Sure they are.
Because they got caught with a complete dud.
Yeah, the last hour and a half was a dud.
Yeah. And so my guess is that the last 90 minutes of their rating numbers were not nearly as good as they should be.
Right.
And Fox is going to go with the NFL and going, what the hell? We pay you all enough money that we don't want some XFL look at quarterback for our title game.
Sure.
Watson, don't you think that's about what's going to happen?
Yeah, they've got to. George, and Billy will remember this. We talked about this a bunch earlier in the year. I went on one of my crazy rampages one day about it. I just said, this is nuts. You got all this money and you won't put a third quarterback on the field. I didn't understand it. Now it's come to fruition. Nice word, Michael, by the way.
Yeah.
Don't ask me to spell it, but it's got to happen, George. That you can't. I bet by halftime they quit watching. But I know when the third one got hurt, that did it. They just turned it off and they're watching Bonanza instead of watching the NFL. So it's got to change. It's got to change. I think they need to add more positions. They need to strengthen their roster. And I'm going to make sense in the next game. But the Bengal offensive line did not lose a player in the first 15 games. All 5 of them played all 15 games. Then they all get hurt, and 3 didn't play yesterday. I just think the season's too long, and if you're going to lengthen the season, add to the roster and have more guys dressing out in the game and let them play more guys to give guys. Other thing we watched, George, during the year, you get a big lead on somebody in the middle of the third quarter. You can't take all your starters out. You can't take them out of a game. They got to keep playing. And I just think that's nuts. Why would you not add 7 or 8 more to the roster? You're making so much money. But anyway, I'm back on the tangent again, Michael. Now you get to hear a lot.
I think Watson hit something that we talked about a lot as well about the injury problem. I mean, it was amplified in these playoffs, Watson. I mean,
I've got that in the
was
next game we're going to talk about. Yes.
You're dropping like flies.
What doesn't make sense to me is that the NFL and the last couple of years, you can see it, have become so quarterback friendly. They've tried with rules to protect the quarterback because obviously they want the quarterback in the game because they know if Josh Allen's not playing for the Bills, there's not a lot of people outside of Bills fans that are going to tune in to watch. And so it's interesting that they've made moves like that to try to protect the quarterback. But then there's this glaring obvious where the four of us can say, how can Christian McCaffrey, even the idea of trying to get him to play quarterback, be a possibility in an AFC or an NFC title game? It doesn't make sense the way I see some ways they're trying to protect the quarterback, but this rule is just, it's stupid. And it shouldn't take four of us to, look at Christian McCaffrey trying to learn plays last minute at quarterback to fix it.
So now let's go to the Philadelphia side of it. And Watson, while I was not that impressed with them on offense, San Francisco's defense has a lot to do with it. But they have run the football when Jalen Hurts is under center or in shotgun. There have been very few teams that have slowed down their running game. What is it they're doing so well in that department?
Well, they've got maybe the best offensive line in pro football, but they're running a college offense. Matter of fact, it's the first time I can remember, George, Michael, Billy, the Super Bowl's got two college offenses playing each other. It's amazing the college game has now worked its way to the NFL. And it's two college offenses, all the different running plays. What Philadelphia has that most of these don't, the Ravens do when Lamar plays. They've got all these quarterback runs that make it a complete different game in trying to stop them. Yesterday in the second half, what did they do when they needed to put the game away? They gave it to Hurts. They let Hurts put the game. Okay, he hadn't carried it much. It's 21-7. Let's put this thing away. And he goes down the field with about 5 or 6 straight runs, score the touchdown in the game. And the quarterback run piece with him, so big and strong. I mean, he is bona fide strong now, and he's a tailback carrying the ball. And I just think that's the difference. When you add that piece to it, it makes that running game really hard to stop. And then all the RPO stuff they're doing off of it, not hard throws for Jalen. That's why they won the games they did. They wouldn't get behind. They could keep in that run-pass mode. Yesterday, guys, they're kind of floundering around, and they get in the second half. I don't know if y'all noticed it, but they put all 3 receivers on one side and 1 receiver on the other, and they started running the ball to the weak side, and they couldn't stop them. So that's what happened in the second half. You remember one play where they pulled the center. They've been running the stretch play, Michael, where everybody just reaches. Well, they went and changed it a little. They put the guard on the guard and pulled the center around instead of chipping off to the linebacker. They pulled the center around for the linebacker. The backside linebacker, Michael, is looking for a play-action pass.
Yep.
He's looking for an RPO. He's hanging, expecting to have to jump and bat a pass down, and here goes Hurts for 25 down the left side. Their style, George, is hard to stop. It was with Lamar. I think this offense is better than what Lamar's been able to play with. These receivers are really good. The offensive line is really good. And Jalen is even a better runner than Lamar to me because he's stronger. He's a stronger runner. Did you see that quarterback sneak from the 1.5-yard line? They just took it and they pushed him into the end zone. I'm going to love the Super Bowl because it's two college offenses playing each other. One's the spread, throw it, and do the run off the run. A lot of RPOs, a lot of bubbles, a lot of slants, a lot of fades. And the other one is a quarterback run-oriented offense. It's going to be fun to watch it.
So, guys, help me with this. I think we all knew going in that Philly had a really good running game. They've done this to a lot of people. But it was the flip side. Let's go to number 3 here, where Philly dominated both sides of the line of scrimmage. Maybe I've undersold their defense a little bit.
That
It was
front,
really good.
yeah.
Their defense can play. I mean, they
Their defense,
really
and that defensive
really can
front's the
play.
whole deal. I mean, they're right there with the Titans. I thought the Titans all year had the best defensive front in the game. But I'm telling you, Philly is bona fide run and throw.
Yeah.
See, they got hurt, George, in a little bit in late season. A lot of those guys were out. Some of the defensive linemen didn't play, and the ball started being run on them, and everybody's saying, I see a weakness. They're all back. They're all healthy. 49ers did a decent job, but not really. I mean, the one touchdown they scored, McCaffrey ran over the whole evergreen shirt on the field.
That was unreal.
I mean,
That was
an unbelievable run that was.
Yeah.
What an unbelievable run that was. But that defense is really good. And the defensive fronts, both offense and defense. I remember sitting in the summer, George, and Jimmy Johnson was on one of the shows one day. He had been to Philly practice. And I think I even said it on the air that Jimmy came in and said, that's the two best fronts in the NFL. That defense and offensive line are really, really good. And that was just watching practice. And sure enough, if you took just two fronts, and San Francisco would be close. They'd be close with them. But you take those two fronts they got, I don't think there's a better one in the NFL. Combine both sides of the ball.
Hassan Reddick is what the kids call a freak.
Oh man. And I'm not going to blame it. I'm not going to blame this guy, but the tight end that they tried to have block Hassan Reddick on the play that Brock Purdy got hurt. I mean, come on. That is a mismatch problem. If you tell the Eagles defensive coordinator to the play before that's the matchup he's getting,
you can't ask him to do that.
Licking his chops. I can promise you that. And Watson, we talk about it all the time. It's if you control the line of scrimmage, I mean, it is hard to lose a football game. And that's what they're going to give. They're going to give Kansas City some problems. I mean, they're going to be able to run the football on Kansas City. I'd be shocked if they can't. And that D line is going to pin their ears back. And, you don't know how good Mahomes' ankle is going to be at that point. I mean, Kansas City is going to have to get creative, because if Philadelphia can dominate the line of scrimmage the way they did against San Francisco, Kansas City don't have a front like San Francisco does. So they're going to have to bring it. They're going to have to get really creative too.
Well, you hit one of my pet peeves. Anytime you put a tight end on a defensive end to block him one-on-one, I've never understood that one. I say, huh? What are you thinking? Chipping out on him and then letting the tackle have him, blocking down on one or something, but not one-on-one, for God's sakes. And I see it all over the NFL. I don't understand it till this day.
How do you block
now? But I've always felt that way.
How do you block a guy like Reddick? What can you do?
You put two on him. I mean,
you just double team him.
You got to totally slide the front that way to help, but then you chip out. We're going to get to that in the Cincinnati game here in a minute. I'll talk a little bit about that, Billy, really, because that's what kind of happened in the Cincinnati game. But you those guys that are that good, I don't know if there's tackles in the NFL that can block those guys. One-on-one. You've got to spend at least half the game giving a tackle help on that guy.
You give the tackle help, and you probably start off on your first couple of drives getting them running side to side. That's you got to do something to get those guys gassed, you know, where they're not running as fast. Now that's a lot easier.
But they don't also they know not to run side to side.
That's a lot easier said than done.
You're on this far side in college. Michael, you've been in those meetings. In college, man, if you don't hustle to make a block on the other side of the field, you get racked by your coach.
Yep.
In the NFL, I promise you, they said, "Hey, don't you chase that ball over there.
That's not your job.
That's not your job. Don't be running over there 30 yards to tackle that guy right there."
Yeah.
I mean, it's a different mindset. You want to keep those guys fresh, and they work at doing that, believe me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, after the break, we'll talk about the game that probably did get all the ratings numbers. It was in prime time. It went right to the wire, and it was a heck of a football game. Kansas City moves on barely over Cincinnati, and we'll talk about it next. I know it's getting colder. You're not thinking about golf. However, if you're planning an event for next year, let me suggest golf through Riverside Golf Links. The course has improved dramatically. It's perfect for hosting a corporate or a charitable outing. They've got everything in place to make your event a rousing success. To get more info, call 615-847-5074 or go online to riversidegolflinks.com. Once the All-Star game is over, the Nashville Predators will have another of their college nights. Tuesday, February the 7th, Tennessee State University front and center stage when the Vegas Golden Knights come to town. Students, alumni, and fans are invited to celebrate. The College Night Series ticket package includes a Predator game ticket and a limited edition co-branded hat. Tickets can be purchased at NashvillePredators.com/college nights. Jody Jones has as nice a dental facility as you'll find anywhere. Let's go in and take a look. Are you in the market for a new dentist? Maybe you're new to Nashville? Well, the place to go is Jody Jones Dentistry at 55 Music Square East. And their new facility is absolutely state-of-the-art. Jody mixes quality with comfort for the perfect dental experience. He's trusted for his creative design and committed to both the function and aesthetics of your smile. Jody is simply the total package. Don't wait. Make an appointment now at 615-259-5100. Now we move to the game. Kansas City at home against the Bengals. And little did we know going in the level of how pissed off Kansas City was about Cincinnati's mayor, about Burrowhead Stadium, about the fact that the Bengals had dominated them in recent meetings. That became a much bigger issue than any of us knew. Watson, whatever the case, it is the two best quarterbacks in football.
It's the two best, and they're going to be the best for a while. Their hearts are bigger and gold, George. I mean, they're competitive as they can be. They're confident as they can be. They don't think they're going to lose. They die if they do lose. I mean, it's what you want in your locker room. And then you put the talent with it, which both of them are so talented. And the knock that I hear about Joe, well, he doesn't move well enough. They're crazy. Joe Burrow is very athletic, very quick. Did you see the move he put on that safety to make that big first down? I mean, he is very athletic, and that's why he's so good in the pocket and so good at moving in the pocket and throwing on the run. But they're the two best quarterbacks in the league. It's not even close. Josh Allen's got to get better at throwing the ball to me, more consistent at throwing the ball. Justin Herbert needs to get on a little better team maybe, but maybe his team will get better. Think about those four, though, all in the same league, and all of them young, all in this. I mean, the AFC is just loaded, man, and that doesn't count on Lamar Jackson, who I think is also really, really good. Deshaun Watson, till he pulled his stuff, I thought he was really, really good. I mean, the AFC for some reason is loaded up. And but before we get to the second one, I will say, popping out whichever safety or corner it was that called it Burrowhead. Holy cow! That's about as dumb a statement as you could pop out. I mean, unbelievable. Can you imagine what that would do to your team if you're on a team and you've got a quarterback like you got, and Arrowhead Stadium is as famous as it is, and a dude calls it Burrowhead? Oh, yep. I tell you, I have not seen the Chiefs that ready to play in 4 years I've been watching now that I retired, George. I have not seen it. I've always felt like the Chiefs were waiting for a good play call or waiting for their quarterback to make a play. But yesterday, that team was into that game, and that defense was into that game. And were they rushing Burrow? I mean,
my God,
they were relentless.
Yep.
And the mayor calling it Burrowhead. I mean, I don't know. Why in the world would you give somebody that kind of – it's kind of the first time the Bengals have been kind of the favorite. They've been that underdog coming up. I think they learned their lesson yesterday. And even though they still should have won the game. In my personal opinion, they outplayed the Chiefs. They just didn't win the game.
Mayor won't get reelected, Michael.
I hope he can get reelected because he's got to be catching grief in Cincinnati
Oh,
today.
you know he is. You know he is. But
You read his quote or Twitter or whatever. He said, "Congratulations, blah blah blah." He tried to downplay it. Ain't no way. He's in trouble, man. He is
stupid.
I've lived in that city. They love those Bengals and those Reds now, and I'm telling you, he's in deep trouble.
I love the confidence. I really did, and I love the swagger that a Joe Burrow team has. But when I saw that, part of me was like, the mayor needs to turn on our show. We had Stat of the Day on last week. They were the only team that hadn't won a Super Bowl out of all the 4 teams left. So, I was just like, come on, man. Like, you gotta, I know you're 3-0 against the Chiefs, or were 3-0 against the Chiefs, but the Bengals kind of forgot. I don't know. I think it was probably a good lesson. And at the end of the day, I turned off the game last night thinking there's a good chance we get to see this 6, 7, 8 more times, in the future. Burrow versus Mahomes. And I think there's any doubt, Michael. It's the next. Is it crazy to say it's the next Brady Manning? I mean, it
sure could be.
I mean, it really could be. And if anything, too, obviously both these teams are killers, and it doesn't seem like that Burrow gets flustered playing in Arrowhead. But at the same time, it might make these last couple of weeks of the regular season that much more important, because if you can play one of those games at home, that is a big advantage.
I saw a lot of people blaming that, that penalty at the end on that's the loss right there. But, and then the other people were like, no, Mahomes didn't outplay Burrow. Do you guys think Mahomes outplayed Burrow in that game? I mean, would you say that?
Well, he didn't turn the ball over. The one thing I always feel about quarterbacks, you don't play bad if you don't turn the ball over.
He turned it over once, but that was kind of a fluke.
The first one of Joe's was an underthrown ball that I thought the receiver should have tackled the guy. Don't let him pick it off. I always told my guys, if you want to be thrown a ball in 50-50 situations, that guy that's guarding you better not pick it off. I don't care if you tackle him, but he don't pick it off. Ball underthrown. Higgins didn't come back for it. Picked off. Second one, he flat threw into double coverage.
Yeah.
He flat threw right into double coverage. And the guy was covered. But that's a little bit of the quarterback mentality, guys. When they got a great receiver, they'll throw it into double coverage to him. Did you see the play that got their tie game?
To Chase.
It's 4th and 6. They run a square in and go on 4th and 6. You're talking about some guts, play call. 4th and 6, you run a 15, 16-yard square in and go into double coverage. And Chase reaches up and grabs it for a great play. Unbelievable plays to me, but I would say Mahomes outplayed him slightly just because of those 2 turnovers.
But
both of them played great. Yeah. Burrow is the only way they were going to have a chance to win the game, George. He had to play great, and he played near great.
Let's go to number 2. It was interesting. As the game went along, Patrick Mahomes learned what Ryan Tannehill has been dealing with. Receivers that don't get open, who have no separation. The one big thing is he's got a tight end that's incredible in Travis Kelce. But, guys, the injuries did hurt both teams. I mean, Cincinnati early got just absolutely blitzkrieged.
Really, the whole game, George, it did. You have 3 offensive line starters out for that game, playing in the championship game against. The team on the other side is really good.
Yeah.
And they got 3 offensive line starters out. And I'm coming back to that. The Chiefs have got people out all over the place. Kelsey was not himself last night. He played his heart out, but he did not have the quickness that he normally has. That back bothered him.
Yep.
And I'll tell you this, he's a tough nut.
Mahomes
Go
wasn't
out there
himself.
and play like that, but he did not have his quickness. Mahomes for sure didn't have his quickness.
Yeah.
All those receivers didn't get hurt. So they got half of their dadgum team out. The Bengals are sitting there with 3 offensive line stars. I don't know how in the world you think you can, and they nearly did it. But they had to, guys, what they had to do to help those linemen, they had to keep the tight end in the game in the backfield or chip him out. Well, what are the Chiefs doing? They're doubling the 2 great receivers. So you got to get them with that tight end.
Yeah.
And yet they can't use him that way very much because he's having to chip out of the backfield. If they had it to do over, I don't think they thought they were going to have as much trouble as they had, George and Michael, because they didn't the week before, but the Bills are just not what they were been in that defensive line. So I think they thought they could get away with it. Well, when they got in the game and they couldn't, they had to take their tight end and put him. How many times did you see him sitting in the backfield? What was that for? Protection.
Mm-hmm.
He had to block and release instead of being a pass receiver. And when he wasn't doing that, Michael, he's sitting in a slot, tight end slot, and chipping out on a guy and then releasing late. They lost their 3rd receiver in the game. I think it cost them the game. He got out one time, and it's 3rd and 16, and I bet that gumfit he don't make the catch on the sidelines over there for a first down. But they couldn't use him the same way because as the game went on, they had to keep him in the backfield. So to me, George, injuries was a big piece of this game. I think it cost the Bengals the game, and it could have very easily have cost the Chiefs the game. And injuries have been that all year in the NFL. And injury in the game before cost the 49ers a chance to win. Injury is becoming a major factor in the NFL, and I don't know what they're going to do about it.
I think Watson, you hit that perfectly. You're saying exactly what I was thinking. I think a thing that's going to be really interesting in the future is from a salary cap standpoint, Kansas City is a couple of, they're a couple years ahead of Cincinnati in the sense that they've paid their quarterback and they kind of had to make the cutback with Tyreek Hill of saying, we can't bring this guy. Cincinnati has got some decisions to make. Mm-hmm. Joe Burrow's got to get paid. Jamar Chase has got to get paid, and T. Higgins has got to get paid. And you saw how good T. Higgins was last night. I mean, that kid's a stud. But so it's going to be interesting who they decide to pay and then Cincinnati's roster is really good top to bottom. They do not have a lot of holes, and it helps because Joe Burrow is on his rookie contract. Jamar Chase is on his rookie contract. But it is going to be interesting when those guys get paid in the future matchups. It's really going to be Mahomes and his weapon, Burrow and his weapon, and then some holes on the rosters, and it's just going to be who's better. And so that's just an interesting point, kind of from not just what happened last night, but kind of what Cincinnati's got in the future set up. It's going to make that matchup interesting.
Watson, I added a 3rd to what you put, and it was the penalties on Cincinnati's side.
Yeah.
First of all, I think the holding penalty on Cincinnati's final drive that turned it into 1st and 19, half the distance to the goal, stopped Cincinnati's momentum. I think they were going to win the game in regulation. I think by then they looked like the better football team and probably walked out of Arrowhead last night going, why didn't we win? But I thought the officials, in particular on the do-over, you got to explain that better. What was that?
Well, first to comment on the holding. You've listened to me, Billy and George, because I've been with y'all all fall. You've listened to me harp on this in the NFL with these defensive backs. I know they're at a major disadvantage, but I just don't understand the discipline on the defensive back side of all these teams, most of these teams. And they just do stupid holes. I mean, just things that you go, why in the world would you do that? And I don't understand it. I thought the holes were right. They were calling it tight on both sides. I didn't think the call was bad. On the call itself, the guy on the sidelines has got to have guts and go running on the field quicker. He can't. He did it, but he's doing it as the ball's being snapped. But now what do? Officials run out on the field and all the players are running routes and everything. The referee now has to go back and do that. It just made it look bad, George. What it was is they didn't line the ball up proper. The officials messed it up. Well, they take 10 seconds to go get the ball lined up right. So the official is supposed to restart the clock, where the official had to go, since it was their era, what the rule is, okay, stop it right there, set the ball, and now you put 10 seconds back on it, and now you play. So if it's 20 seconds left when he started to do that, then you add it back to 20 seconds, or if it's 30 seconds, whatever it is. But the reason it looks so bad is the line judge on the side who knew what happened, to me, he choked. He froze, and he didn't go in quick enough. Now here he is. He's running by receivers, running routes. When you see the picture doing this, and it just looked awful. It's the right call, handled awful, and it killed the Bengals. And I'll be dadgum if they don't turn around after that and replay the play and hold.
Yeah.
And hold to give them an automatic first down. I mean, the Bengals they are sick. They're sick as they can be.
Oh, yeah.
In my opinion. They're sick.
So, Michael, did you think there was a point early in the fourth quarter where you said to yourself, Cincinnati is now clearly the better football team and they're going to win?
Yeah. It felt like there was a big turn of momentum. You could just feel it watching it when the Mahomes fumble happened. You know, he was trying to throw the quick screen and he fumbled. You could feel that flip that was like, uh-oh. It was almost like they were in the driver's seat for so long. And if you remember last year's game, they were up 21-3 in the driver's seat. And there was a flip in last year's game. And it felt like that flip happened when he fumbles, they go down and score. And that's when I'm saying, like, ooh, it's a repeat all over again of last year. So yeah, I felt that, but it was weird because then Kansas City won, and it's almost like as a fan or as someone who was watching, I was surprised. I felt like after the game, I was like, how did they just win? You know, it just felt like after that flip, it was almost this expectation in my mind, Kansas City, they're going to find a way to win this game. So that was interesting. Also, what about, this isn't a big point, but how awesome is Andy Reid to call a stick and hook and ladder in the second quarter? I mean, I was watching that like
they should have gained more on it too if it was a better toss.
Oh, it was wide open. They were in a sail concept and they run it with a back coming out, and it was like, are you kidding me right now? That was Andy Reid. He's a character now, but I thought that was awesome.
Well, not only I've done that off a curl flat route and the flat guy turn up. This guy came from the backfield.
Yeah.
This guy came from the backfield, and the only thing is he was too far from the pitch.
Right.
I promise you, if he'd been tighter, he might have scored.
Watson
and Kelsey still nearly got it to him, and it was probably a 12-yard flip he had to make to get the kid coming out of the backfield. And one last comment, George. I know we got to go, but the kid that hit late out of bounds, I don't know that I've ever felt any worse for anybody in my life. This kid, he played his heart out the whole game.
Yep.
You don't know how hard that is. He's coming from middle of the field, flying to get to Mahomes. It's the biggest play of the daggum game. He's trying to keep him from getting the first down, keep him in bounds. And I think he just couldn't stop. His momentum just kept, you're going so fast, but to have that on you and all the cameras on you like that, and he'll live with that the rest of his life. That's just so unfair, but that's sports. That's sports. That's life.
The camera in his face was awful. That made it. I mean, they went to him and as close up to him as they could after that.
There was no cheap shot, no nothing. He's trying to make a play, period. Yeah. That's all he's trying to do.
Two things on that. The first is one of the worst things that's gone in the players, not in the players' favor, is how they can slow down the camera. Because when you slow down the camera, you look at him, you're like, what an idiot. But when you realize this thing is bang, bang, and it's just a bunch of speed on speed.
Initially, you couldn't tell.
Yeah, I mean, you're saying, man, what do you expect this guy to do? Was it the wrong play? Absolutely. Was it the right call? Yeah, it was. But slowing it down by the frame makes it seem like this is obvious. This is a fast game. It's a violent game. You know, obviously, he wished he could do it a million times over. The last thing I'll say is, I don't know if you guys saw after the game, man, it was awesome to see one of his teammates stood right by him for the interview questions and just kind of was making sure that there was nothing that he didn't like. I think he actually shut down a reporter's question. And, that's the type of stuff that you want to see, because ultimately these guys realize they've got families, they've got lives, that the guy's not trying to go make a stupid play. And I just thought that was a really cool moment. I don't know the guy's name, but that was a cool moment.
While Jermaine Pratt's running to the locker room, basically blaming the game on him. That's, you got to have better teammates. And I think most of the teammates were like,
did you see the guy defending him though?
Yeah.
That was awesome. So
we'll stop here and tell you that we've got a Super Bowl coming. And here are a couple of the things that are going to be really interesting. Andy Reid spent a lot of time in Philly, and you're going to hear a lot about that leading up to the Super Bowl. Andy Reid versus Philly, where he participated in the Super Bowl, but now he's the coach at Kansas City. And of course, you're going to hear about the Kelce's. Travis on the Kansas City side, his brother, an offensive lineman with Philly. We'll go to the break. Stat of the day is coming up, and then we'll head over to Florida and find out more about what went on at Bethune-Cookman that has Ed Reed out. Stay tuned.
Hey, thank you for meeting with me today. The insurance company has made an offer.
Already? Wow.
They've offered you the entire policy.
Thank you, Blair.
You're so welcome.
Hockey in Music City just hits different. It's one big honky-tonk party. It's the sea of gold in the crowd. The goals, the saves, the celebrations. It's an experience like no other. Don't miss a minute of the action this season. Visit NashvillePredators.com/tickets to get your seats today. That's NashvillePredators.com/tickets. And we'll see you at Bridgestone Arena.
Welcome to John English Antique Sports and Cards, located at 204 East Depot Street in beautiful downtown Shelbyville, Tennessee. Their phone number is area code 931-492-4304. John, obviously, I've been blown away by what I've seen at your place. I've now been there 3 times. But for the person who's never been, what should they expect?
Well, we have a 3,000 square foot store, George. Half of it is vintage cards in all sports. And then half of the store is, a lot of people call it the museum, where there's a lot of early equipment and just the history of sports in general, baseball, football, basketball, golf, tennis, and other items.
When somebody comes in there that you know is a big sports fan, what is their normal reaction?
Well, I think that they're pleasantly surprised, and of course, being in Shelbyville, Tennessee, which is a small town that you would never expect a shop like we have to be in. So they're kind of, I don't want to say blown away, but as I said, pleasantly surprised.
Welcome back into the George Plaster Show. It's now time for Stat of the Day, presented by John English Antique Sports and Cards in the beautiful downtown Shelbyville, Tennessee, 204 East Depot Street. Tuesday through Friday is when you can find them, noon to 5. Also Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 5. Give them a call at 931-492-4304. Again, that's 931-492-4304. All right, let's see what Michael's got cooked up for us today for Stat of the Day as we take a look here. NFL, who is the only NFL quarterback to make the Super Bowl twice in their first 3 NFL seasons?
Ooh.
Joe Burrow would have become the second if he could have done it last night. but he did not.
Watson, any thoughts right off the bat?
Roethlisberger.
Ben Roethlisberger. How many years did he play in the league? Was it like 18?
Something like that. Yeah.
Something like that. So he would have been 2004. They won a Super Bowl against Seattle. God, I'm getting nowhere with this one.
He's a current quarterback. There's your hint.
The other one would be Russell Wilson, is what I'd say.
Okay. You know what? Since I'm not doing very well with this, my brain seems to have completely shut off. Think about Russell Wilson for a minute. New England, and of course, Denver. Those are the two Super Bowls. Blowout of Denver. And then, of course, the play that Malcolm Butler stopped Seattle from winning a second one. What the heck? You want to go with that?
It's the only one I can come up with.
Let's do it.
Boom.
That a baby.
Boom.
And
Watson.
And my guess is that Chris Vinel, who writes for the Daytona Beach News Journal, absolutely had that one in his hip pocket. True or false? Did you have it?
Oh, absolutely false. I was guessing Montana when you first said it, but as soon as you said Russell Wilson, that made sense to me. So you did better than I did.
Oh, I didn't do. I got nothing done. You know, the first one I thought about was Dan Marino, but Marino never played in a second Super Bowl.
That's crazy. That is so crazy.
So anyway, we've asked Chris to join us to talk a little bit about what went on at Bethune-Cookman. Strange story where Ed Reed gets announced as the football coach, and you're thinking, okay, another one of these big names like Dion that gets a school a lot of attention, but the whole thing went south, and this just in, it ain't Ed Reed anymore. It's going to be somebody else. So, Chris, let me start with this. They had not signed a contract with each other, had they?
There was no contract ever. They had announced an agreement in principle. That was the term they kept using, agreement in principle, on December 27th. And a couple of days later, you know, you typically expect an introductory press conference a couple of days later, and we were told that was coming. And a couple of days went by, no word. Well, a week went by, no word. 2 weeks went by, no word. And then on January 15th came Reed's controversial videos, which I'm sure we will get to. But at that point, they still had not locked down a contract. AD Reggie Theus had said, you know, we were almost done. It was almost finalized, but we still had to cross a few T's and dot a few I's and then get it ratified by the university. So all throughout January, Ed Reed was recruiting. He was, in town meeting with his players, and he did not have a contract. He was never officially the head coach at Bethune-Cookman.
So we know what a lot of it is. He was coming out eventually and saying, look, these facilities are pathetic. I'm having to do this. I'm having to do that. When did he start mouthing this off internally to them, best as you can tell?
Well, internally, Reggie Theus has said, their AD has said, Ed was a completely different guy off camera. You know, he was completely understanding of their situation. He knew their situation because Reggie Theus said that the two of them had talked about it, and he gave Ed Reed a personal tour, of the university, of the program, what's good, what's bad about it, when Reed arrived in town. So I think Bethune-Cookman was kind of caught off guard by Reed's comments. And those all came publicly. They all came on social media. They all came on Instagram Live. And that's just the way it went.
Chris, have they hired a coach?
They have not. They had after Reed was, announced they weren't going to continue negotiations with him, football players, people around the university, there was a lot of outrage and even some protest about it, especially from the players. The players had formed a petition and signed it, posted it on social media, addressed it to the administration of the university to bring Ed Reed back. I talked with several players who said, we want him back. There had been players in the portal, the transfer portal, when he was announced, who came out of the portal to play for Ed Reed. Those guys are now kind of wavering again, is what I've been told. And they don't have a coach yet. They did have a meeting at the end of last week with the team saying, hey, let's move past it. Reed's not coming back. Here's the deal. And they're looking to sign a coach within the next 10 days from that meeting. Now, that was a few days ago, so their timeline butts up with really this weekend is as late as they want to go with signing a new one.
Now, for those who don't remember, Reggie Theus is a former NBA player, a very flamboyant player in his NBA life. What's he been like as an athletic director? Because I'll admit, when I saw that, I was like, Reggie Theus is an AD?
So not only is he the AD at Bethune-Cookman, but he's also their head men's basketball coach. And there's a lot of people saying, how can you do both in the age of 2023 and NIL and transfer portal? Both are all consuming jobs. So there's been some comments about that. And the past couple of weeks, especially since they announced this Reed signing, he has been almost silent. We actually, the Daytona Beach News Journal, have not talked to him because he has not responded to our request for comment. And the university said he will not be, made available to the media until after they hire a new coach, after this search process wraps up. But he did give 2 interviews. He gave one to SiriusXM Radio, a SiriusXM podcast over there, and then one to HBCU Game Day. So those are the only 2 public comments that he has made about this whole situation. And he defended the university, obviously. But, he's kind of a mixed bag in terms of reception to his work as AD so far. He's been there about a year and a half.
Yeah. Watson, say hello to Chris Vinel.
Chris, thanks for coming on with us. Do you really feel that because I've gone into places before and after I got there and saw facilities that I didn't see prior to taking jobs. And I remember walking down one hallway. My wife grabs me by the arm and says, honey, you've done it again. I just started laughing. Do you think he really did know exactly what was there and it shocked him? Or do you think he knew every piece of this and then after he got there had different thoughts? What in the world would make him come out and make the statements he made? Makes you wonder, does he not want the job? If you come out and say those type things publicly instead of getting behind closed doors and say, we got a lot to do here. Are you going to back me on this, or do we need to just part ways right now?
I think it was kind of a mixed bag. I think Ed knew some of what he was getting into, but then again, he's used to, the University of Miami, where he spent the last 3 years as an advisor on their coaching staff or to their coaching staff. He's used to, the Baltimore Ravens and NFL facilities. So I'm sure he had an idea that he wasn't getting those things that he's accustomed to, but I don't know that he knew the full scope of, what it's like to coach at an HBCU or what it's like to coach, at a non-Power 5 school. Who knows what's going through his mind, because, it was 2 weeks, almost 3 weeks into his time after the agreement in principle they had on December 27th, by the time he made those comments publicly. He had been in town for 2 weeks before those comments. He had seen, the campus. He had talked to Reggie Theus. Theus said, I spent an hour and a half going over just the history of this university and some of the reasons why you might see less than ideal facilities right now. The school and this area went through 2 hurricanes just, in the matter of the last 4 or 5 months. They're still cleaning up. And that's not just the university. That is, the area in general. And then you come into the fact of, it's an HBCU. It's not as well funded as, the University of Miami. But there's so many schools that are like that. If he would have went to my alma mater, Miami of Ohio, I'm sure, there would have been some gripes there because, it's not Alabama, it's not Ohio State, it's not University of Miami. So I don't really know what exactly he thought he was getting himself into, but he has come out and said, Reggie Theus is lying about him. He hasn't really added more comment than that. That's been on social media. But I don't really know.
Last thing, I'll give it to Michael. Who made the call? Do you think? Was it the president? Was it the AD? Because what I understood, he was putting some strong money together. That he was bringing folks in that were going to give him big time money to really improve everything there. Which makes me wonder, why in the world would he say that when he knows he's going to have an opportunity to fix all this? And then when you let him go, you throw out all of that he's bringing in a financial way. I've been through so many of these hirings and firings as both an AD and a coach. And to me, you sit down with him behind closed doors and you try to work it out before you just flat fire him. So who made the call? Was it the president, the AD? Who do you think really finished this off?
So Bethune-Cookman right now has an interim president, Lawrence Drake, and he was the one who made the final call. He said that in an interview last week that it was his decision. He was the one who made that final call. But there was a good 5 days in between Bethune-Cookman actually getting rid of him and the initial release of those videos. Those videos came 5 days before, they decided not to pursue further contract negotiations with him. Yeah. So Reggie Theus has said the two of them had conversations about it, the two of them being Theus and Reed, about, hey, we can't have this. We can't be doing this. And he said also there was a point where, Theus tried to make it known that, hey, this wasn't going to work. And, we thank you for your interest, but this isn't going to work. And he said, I tried to get him to realize that as well. And I tried to get him to kind of withdraw his name or step away from the position, and Ed did not want to do that. You saw in a video last week when he was actually released that Saturday, he was meeting with his team and meeting with recruits and kind of telling his side of the story to them. And he said, I don't want to go. They're forcing me out. So that was the president's call. Reggie Theus had, a hand in that, a strong say in that. But it was the university president's final call.
Chris, talk to me a little bit about, obviously this seems like it is pretty controversial. Not seems like it is around Bethune-Cookman. Is it a 50-50 split, as in kind of some of the frustration? Obviously the players are frustrated because they wanted Coach Reed. But obviously, we're also having these conversations of, okay, well, he, there were some things that he needed to handle differently. How is this playing just in the community? And I mean, what's kind of the split on this thing of which sides people are taking?
I think the majority of the players, at least from the sense that I got, are on the side of Reed. Initially when the news broke, they wanted Reed back. Like I said, they've since had a meeting to kind of reconcile between the administration and the players. But they were on Reed's side. When you go into the community, the alumni, that sort of thing, I think it is a lot more evenly split. There were a lot of people saying, we don't want someone who's going to come in and just trash, or criticize, what we've built or what we have, and not really see the value in Bethune-Cookman. And then there are other people saying, we do have problems. And Ed Reed, with his fundraising, his big name appeal, he could help bring in, potential fixes, bring in an influx of cash that would lead to improvements. And the students on campus had a protest last Monday kind of about that. And it wasn't necessarily a protest about Ed Reed. It was a protest about campus conditions. They had talked about mold in dorms and, just different things that they wanted to see improved on the campus, or that they felt, wasn't safe to be living in, or to be dealing with, or ideal to be dealing with, on a daily basis. And but they said Ed Reed, his firing and the way he spoke out was kind of a spark for those protests. So you get both sides of it. I think the students lean a little bit more towards, pro Ed Reed, and the alumni, the community in general, it's probably more evenly split, or at this point, now that we've gotten the word that, Reed is not coming back for sure, that they may even be kind of anti-Reed or lean more toward that side.
Yeah. Last one quick for you. Where do you think crystal ball, I mean, Ed Reed's probably not done coaching, and there's probably going to be somebody who's going to be willing to take a swing on him. Have you heard anything or have any kind of prediction for where he could end up and where he could be? And do you think that some schools have honestly checked him off the list and say we don't want to deal with it?
Oh, I can guarantee there are some schools that have checked him off the list and said, we may not want to deal with that ourselves. We kind of learned our lesson there. But I'm sure that there are other schools who would be open to it, or you could see him maybe doing, a stint as an assistant with even Deion Sanders at Colorado, a situation like that where, he can kind of, really take a coaching job in college. He's never been a college coach before. He was an advisor on that Miami staff, and then he spent 1 year as an assistant DB coach for the Buffalo Bills, but he's never actually had college coaching experience. So I think, for him to get a big time job, he would need to kind of cut his teeth a little bit in the ranks first, maybe as an assistant. And I think if I had to place a wager, it would be at Colorado, but I don't know if that's going to happen either. I have no insider info on that.
Chris, really appreciate your taking the time to come on with us. Miami, Ohio, huh?
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I proud Miami alum.
You and Ben Roethlisberger.
Something like that.
Yeah. I can see him being number one, you being number two, but the more of these stories you break, I can see it kind of flipping around.
I've got about 50 cradle of coaches to pass first. A lot of those members, I think, are probably above me, but we'll see.
You're absolutely right about that. Thanks for the visit.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Chris Vinel from the Daytona Beach News Journal joining us here on the show. So, Billy, where are we in the chat room?
George, we've made some headway.
Have we?
Yeah, we've got some questions ready and raring to go.
Do we?
Yeah, we've got some NFL questions. We've got a college basketball question, a broadcast question. So we've got them. We'll see if you guys can answer them.
Okay, we're going to spend the next segment with some of your questions. This is the beginning of us trying to be a little more interactive in this show. Eventually, in a couple, 3 weeks, we'll get into the phone call business. Imagine that. Okay, how do they get in? Because you can move quick and get in now.
Yeah. If you move quick, we've already got 3 to 4 lined up right now, so we'll be able to get to your question if you get it in now. It may be a little bit of a longer segment if we get a few more here, but that's okay. We've got your questions ready to go. If you want to ask one, go to the search bar at the bottom right corner of where you watch your YouTube videos and fire those questions away, and we will get to those.
Okay, we will take your questions out of the chat room next.
How am I going to get to work? My car's totaled.
Scholar, our team is making a call right now. We'll get you a rental car. Don't worry.
That's a relief.
Call us 24/7. We're here. We're going to help.
Year number 2 of the Plaster and Friends Celebrity Bowling Night was awesome. And the reason is simple. I chose Hermitage Strike and Spare. They were amazing. Great food, great bowling, and a staff that's ready to go the extra mile. They have 5 family fun centers in the area to choose from. And for more info, go to strikeandspare.com or call them at 615-824-5665.
As the trusted premier custom home builder in Middle Tennessee, Donnelly Timmons has over 20 years of experience in the industry. Whether you're looking to build your dream home or renovate your current home, their team will ensure that every client and every remodel is unique, luxurious, and completed on time within budget. Founders Dustin Timmons and Joey Donnelly have over 25 years of construction experience in the Nashville area. Together, they have completed projects in Forest Hills, Oak Hill, Green Hills, Franklin, and Brentwood. Dustin and Joey believe that communication is the most important aspect of all construction projects. Therefore, they personally manage each project themselves and are involved in job site activities on a daily basis. Their commitment to quality and integrity has earned them an outstanding reputation among their clients. Contact them to set an appointment for a free consultation or to view some of their completed projects. Give them a call at 615-456-7983 or log on to donleytimmons.com.
Oh, these are exciting times. Interactive. Imagine that. Yeah. So we've opened up a chat room, and it looks like we've got a few questions out of there. This will eventually lead to us doing more in the phone call world and try to get, like into the 21st century of interactive activity. So, Billy, you have the questions. Shoot.
I have the power here. That's rare.
No, don't. Let's not go that far.
All right, George.
Watson, do you think Billy has the power?
Well, absolutely. Just ask him.
Right now, at least. All right, Joe Michael Swing on Facebook, maybe the best name we've gotten here.
Mm-hmm.
He says, the Fox lead broadcast team with Kevin Burkhardt and Greg Olson, to me, leaves a lot to be desired from previous team of Joe Buck and Troy Aikman. I don't like their broadcast. That's more of a statement, but how would you guys respond to
I'll
that?
start it, and you all work from there. When Joe Buck and Troy Aikman left, it was sort of down to this Kevin Burkhardt, Greg Olson team, which obviously is a new team, not one that the country is used to. The other involved the possibility of Joe Davis with Daryl Johnston. Joe Davis is the television play-by-play voice of the Dodgers. I don't think they're bad. I wouldn't say it's Al Michaels, Chris Collinsworth, Al Michaels, John Madden. Watson, I would say when you get to the very top of the NFL broadcast tree, you're in the highest of cotton.
Well, you have to be. I mean, if you're not going to be there long. They'll make their switches pretty dadgum quick. I'm not as strong as he is about it. I think they do a good job. I'm a little more on Tony Romo, and I think he's gotten worse instead of better. He just doesn't shut up now, and he rambles, and he tries to, I don't know. I can't exactly put my finger on it, but I just don't think he's as good as he was when he first started at this, George. And so when I'd watch Tony do the game, and then I watch Greg do the game, and only thing I can do is as an analyst, because I did that, as you know, for 3 years for ESPN, and I just think sometimes you can talk too much. You just need to be quiet a little bit. It's TV, it's not radio, and I'm no superstar, but at the same time, I like Olsen better than I have Tony here recently. You may not feel that way. I do.
No, it's funny because a friend of mine reached out late last night at the end of the game and said, "Can we shut Tony Romo up?" And I replied that he had verbal diarrhea. He just would not shut up.
He's
last
screaming.
night. And yeah, it was pretty surprising to me.
He acts like he's, reporting from the scene of a hurricane, and he's in high winds. So he's always screaming. The volume's always.
He's got the oohs and e's too.
Way
he's
too
trying
high.
to get it out. Ooh,
I don't know, Jim.
Oh, I really enjoyed Tony first couple years of it. I mean,
I did too.
I'm not as hard on him probably as you guys
and
are.
where are you from?
Yeah, there's some bias, but I love listening
Well,
to
tell
him,
people
man.
where you're from.
Where did he
Arlington,
play?
Texas.
And where is the stadium located?
10 minutes from my house. There's
I'm
little
not as
bias.
hard on
Welcome
him.
to chat room.
Yeah.
Oh, we're off and running.
Okay, we ready for the next one?
Sure.
Right.
All right. Jess on YouTube asks, Both starting running backs in the Super Bowl are making under $1.5 million this season. Is it time to stop handing out big contracts to running backs?
Watson, you start it.
I've said that all the way through, unless you get one like Derrick Henry. You get an Eric Dickerson, a Jim Brown, one of those guys that's just, he's bona fide. You take your chance. And the reason I say it is they get hurt. Their lifespan's not long. They get injured. They have to carry it so much. Their tackle, if they're not running, they're blocking. And they're blocking a big old linebacker in the passing game or whatever. So I just think you do the way I'm seeing the NFL teams, other than the Derrick Henrys of the world, they're doing it by committee more. Guys, there's 3 running backs and they're alternating them in and out. The Eagles do that. They've got a couple of really good ones. The Chiefs do that. And I just think it's kind of the going thing, and not to throw the big bucks on a running back unless he's in a world of his own, just absolute world of his own. And you know that long before you give him the contract.
Yeah, one word on that one is Zeke. Being a Cowboys fan, it's been the contract that has killed me, being a Cowboys fan and seeing that. And honestly, Watson, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier in the show, which is if you are good up front, I'm not saying playing running back in the NFL is easy. I'm not saying that. But if you are good up front and have a dominant offensive line, man, that makes a lot of running backs look pretty good. And so I think it's a great question, and I'm definitely loaded up on the offensive line, defensive line, quarterback. I feel like that's the running back position in the NFL. Sorry if you don't like it, but it just seems like that's a revolving door of guys that you can put in, and I think it's a good point.
George, the point I'll give it to you, but a quick point. The one I would pay would be that guy like Christian McCaffrey or Barkley that can get in space and be a receiver. Now that guy is more of a receiver running back. He may deserve a lot more money because he can get in space and make plays catching the ball as well as running the ball. That's the guy I think I'd pay more, not just the ball carriers.
We have late word out of Atlanta that Darren O'Day has retired, to which I will say, thank God.
That was pleasant.
Yeah.
Yes.
George, let's get to this. And Jess has another kind of a second part to her question. She asks, who are your early predictions for Kellen Moore's replacement in Dallas? By the way, I texted Michael last night after the news, and I said, I bet you're excited. He said, oh, yeah, I'm ecstatic.
Oh, I was pumped.
I'll go first on that one. I think it'll be one of his former guys. One of his former guys from Green Bay will show up as his offensive coordinator. That's
okay.
You think we'll know him?
A Darrell Bevel?
I really can't just give you a name, but I'll bet you it's one that's worked with him before.
George, what do you think?
Brian Schottenheimer apparently is some sort of an analyst on the Cowboys staff. That also would not be a shock. By the way, Brian lived here for a pretty good while, and I never met him, but I hear he's a really good guy. Darren O'Day is probably a really good guy.
He probably is. You said praise God to his retirement, which is
well, if you throw at a speed that doesn't fool them,
yeah.
Thank you.
Long ball.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to give a specific name. I threw this out a couple days ago, last week. I would like to see, just because I think it'd be a really interesting talking point. I'm not saying he'd work. I'd like to see Dan Mullen, just to see. I want to see someone throw his name out that's got a lot more popularity than I do.
About Dak.
About Dak, just to see, because it's got to work with Dak. Now, it's not going to be him, I'm sure, but I'd love to see if anyone else goes there.
The last hope of fixing Dak.
Yeah.
Could it be Dan Mullen? We'll see. All right, Dusty Coach, tuning in from Shelbyville, asks, question for the panel: which quarterbacks in the NFL are worth a $40 million a year contract? Is it just Mahomes, Burrow, and Allen? Are those 3 guys in a tier of their own? Or are there other quarterbacks that should be worth $40 million a year?
Well, can I start this?
Go for it.
Sure thing.
Because I think this is an area where things get really selfish. Okay. I've never made $40 million a year, so I've never been presented with this opportunity. But what I truly believe is that if your quarterback gets 40 million of your salary cap, that there are certain places that you're not going to be able to do what you need to do because that quarterback has been so selfish. Aaron Rodgers.
Hint, hint.
Okay. It was great that he got all that money. Okay. And he's gotten to sit back and, do his weekly podcast and whatever. But the selfishness that he has shown by that desire to have all that money has left them with very little wiggle room in other areas. So while he sits there and complains, he is part of the problem. None of these quarterbacks are worth 40 million. I'm not saying they're not worth it, but in the salary cap world they're in, it is selfish and it doesn't help the team. And all it does is put you, I guess, Watson, in a higher tax bracket. Although
it'll do that.
Know.
Yeah, it'll do that.
Does it?
Yeah.
So is there one where you go from like making 60,000 a year to, if you're making 40 million, it gets up there?
You have jumped out of the tax bracket code. You've left it.
Now, so are you saying you wouldn't pay Mahomes 40 million?
No, I'm not saying. I'm saying that this has become a big ego issue.
Mm-hmm.
And they all have giant egos. And if one of them gets to 37.5, then the next one says, well, hell, I'm worth more.
Right.
I want 38.5. But what needs to be said is, okay, Lamar or whoever, Josh Allen.
Sure.
Yeah, we can pay you this. But when we do, and we have to then get you Cole Beasley instead of Stephon Diggs, know that you're the reason.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
I honestly, I agree with that. I think there are only a handful of quarterbacks that really are worth that money. When I watched the Niners play the Cowboys, I had to ask myself, you're telling me that there's a $40 million difference at quarterback between Brock Purdy? Brock Purdy's making like $900,000 this year. There's a $40 million difference at quarterback between Dak and Brock Purdy. That's where it's frustrating as a Cowboys fan, because you feel like if you're going to pay that guy $40 million, he's got to elevate you. He's got to be able to make up for a bunch of players that he doesn't have. And when he doesn't, and you see a guy that's making $1 million a year go in and play just as fine as him, and you see all the weapons that he's got around him that Dallas can't afford, it starts at least fans really frustrated. So I don't know. I'm with you, but I think certain quarterbacks, Mahomes, Burrow, Allen, I think you do pay because you just have to.
I would try to structure something where I pay them less and maybe give them another year or two of contract. If I was a GM, that's the way I would go about it, where I don't spend all my money on the quarterback, but you can pay him some down the stretch if his time's up and you work a deal to pay him that way. I just don't think you can do that. The other thing I'd be very concerned about are these running quarterbacks paying them huge bucks because they're near like running backs, and they get hurt quicker. They do. They get hurt more than the other guys do. And Jalen's been hurt this year. He missed 3 or 4 games. Lamar's missed most of the season. These running style quarterbacks that these offenses are copying, now running the running style plays for that quarterback. To me, you got to be careful paying the real big bucks. And I think that's where Lamar's caught right now with the Ravens. I do. I think that's what the deal is. I don't think they want to pay that much because of injury. And we just talked about that with running backs. The other comment I'll make, George, it's now trickling down to the good old college game. I mean, don't think these guys, this guy that's going to Florida for $13 million, that's never thrown a pass out of high school and ends up not going there because they didn't come through on their deal. That I can tell you in the long run, that is not going to go over good in a locker room. It is not going to go over good. It's one thing to pay a guy after 3 years like the NFL. Come in on a rookie contract, okay, free agent time, go for it. That's when he makes his big bucks. These guys are making big bucks and they've never thrown a pass. I mean, I'm telling you, it's working its way right down to college football, and there's going to be locker room issues before it's all said and done.
We will have a press conference soon in the next year or two where a college quarterback says, I couldn't afford to go pro. I was going to have to take a pay cut.
I hope not.
It's going to happen. Billy, you got one more?
Yeah, George, we got a question from Ford on YouTube. He says,
hello, Ford.
How do you think the AFC Championship would have turned out if the quarterbacks switched teams? Interesting.
Well,
I'll
start with that one. I'll start with that one. You put an injured quarterback with that offensive line of the Bengals, game over. He'd have had no shot because he couldn't get away from anything, whatever. I just don't think that was the good match. Both of them had to play hamstrung in this game. That's why I think they're the two best in the business. And they still played great, both of them. One didn't have an offense protection at all, and the other one couldn't move around and lost all of his receivers. I mean, so they're both hamstrung in the game. And I thought both of them kept their cool, played their hearts out, and that's why they're the two best in the league.
That's a good question. I got to think.
You want me to give it to you a different way?
Yeah.
What if you switch stadiums? Cincinnati wins that game.
Yeah, they do. They do. I think, Watson, you make a good point with the offensive linemen. But it is amazing to see Patrick Mahomes throwing guys open that are not as good as T. Higgins or Jamar Chase.
That last throw he made was unreal.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. And so it would be interesting. It's hard to imagine a world where Mahomes doesn't look good with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, So that's an interesting question. I think for sure it's Cincinnati. Cincinnati wins by 7. And I think I probably agree that the Chiefs win both of those games because of the offensive line issues. But I don't know. Don't sleep on Mahomes with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins.
No, that's why I don't think there's a drop difference in them. They're the two best. I wouldn't pick one of them. I can't tell you if the guy asked, the caller asked, which one's the better of the quarterback. I can't answer that. They're both they're the two best in the league.
Watson, George, Billy, real quick. I mean, let's take that question. If you were starting a franchise tomorrow and you could have one or the other, who do you take?
I would put my money. I would worry about something else because either one of them I get, I'm going to win.
Flip a coin.
That's not the issue. I would probably take Joe Burrow right now because he's a couple of years younger. That means I got him a little longer.
I would go Mahomes. Not by much. Maybe like by a cigar.
It's close.
You set that one up, didn't you?
I sure did.
Speaking of cigars, I think the Chiefs saw them smoking cigars after they beat the Bills in the divisional round.
Yeah.
Which I don't understand that.
Tell them to stuff those cigars up their mayor.
Wow.
That's 2 for you, George.
He's not the mayor for long.
That's good. 2 in a row.
No, if he gets in a runoff, he's going to be in big trouble.
He ain't making it to a runoff.
What were the reasons you weren't elected, you think? Well, I cost the Bengals the Super Bowl.
Pissed off the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Okay, so when are we doing chat room again? This was a rousing success.
Riveting.
I don't know. You're the director, George.
Yeah, it is your show.
We're not trying to step on your toe here.
Well, Watson, when was the last time we heard that?
Been a while.
It has been a while.
Been a while.
Well, we can throw that card when it comes to responsibility. What is your show? Only what helps us out.
Guess what we've got next?
I know what's next. Did you do good this weekend? I don't even know what you picked.
No, actually, you know what we'll do? We'll combine the two because it won't take long.
Let's do it.
Studs and duds, followed by how many did he win this weekend? Okay. Stay tuned.
Hey, thank you for meeting with me today. The insurance company has made an offer.
Oh, Already? Wow.
They've offered you the entire policy.
Thank you, Blair.
You're so welcome.
Forget the fact that Sir Speedy Music City is owned by my BGA classmate James Warren. Their work stands on its own merit. James and his staff do incredible work, as evidenced by the huge banners at the Plaster and Friends Celebrity Bowling Night. If you're looking for quality to help your marketing and business communications, and you want it at a reasonable price, these are your folks. Call them at 615-832-9511 or go to print at sirspeedymusiccity.com. And be sure to tell them Plaz sent you. Once the All-Star game is over, the Nashville Predators will have another of their college nights. Tuesday, February the 7th, Tennessee State University front and center stage when the Vegas Golden Knights come to town. Students, alumni, and fans are invited to celebrate. The College Night Series ticket package includes a Predator game ticket and a limited edition co-branded hat. Tickets can be purchased at NashvillePredators.com/college nights. Jody Jones has as nice a dental facility as you'll find anywhere. Let's go in and take a look. Are you in the market for a new dentist? Maybe you're new to Nashville? Well, the place to go is Jody Jones Dentistry at 55 Music Square East, and their new facility is absolutely state-of-the-art. Jody mixes quality with comfort for the perfect dental experience. He's trusted for his creative design and committed to both the function and aesthetics of your smile. Jody is simply the total package. Don't wait. Make an appointment now at 615-259-5100.
Go ahead and get to the read now. I know we got studs and duds coming up first, but after that, we've got George's bet of the day, and that is brought to you by Bart Durham Injury Law. They are lawyers you can trust. Give them a call at 615-242-9000. That's 615-242-9000, or log on to their website. That's bartdurham.com.
Okay, the studs are as follows. The Big 12 kicked the SEC's butt.
7-3.
Sure did.
And there was no doubt.
Started with Oklahoma.
Yes, and ended with Big Blue. Wow. 7-3.
You know,
Ouch.
George, that showed that there's really no bottom to the Big 12. I mean, you had bottom tier teams technically in the standings beat SEC teams at the top. That's a damn good conference.
I think you're going to see it too when, you know, I mean, you put up the sixth best Big 12 team against a Gonzaga in a tournament.
Mm-hmm.
You think the Big 12's flinching when they've played Baylor and Kansas and, I mean, Kansas State, TCU? I mean, they've seen it all. So it's going to be interesting in the tournament. They're going to give somebody's in the Big 12 that was average in the Big 12 is going to upset somebody.
Stud number 2. Man, what a stud. Even on one leg, the guy threw for over 300 yards. It's just amazing what he gets done. Watson, I never cease to be amazed at his ability to just make the worst situation, to make lemonade out of lemons.
And do it in so many different ways. He can beat you in so many different ways, but he basically beats you with his heart. I mean, he wills himself to win. He wills his team to win. And you just flat got to beat him. He's not going to beat himself. And it's unbelievable. And he is the most talented quarterback of all of them because of all he can do. He can do, I mean, throw it underhanded, sideways, I mean, he can beat you with his legs. We watched him beat the Titans one night when the Titans absolutely had his goat, and he just had him messed up, and he had a tough night throwing the ball. They come back and beat us. How? Beat us with his legs. I mean, he figures out a way.
Oh, he
but
does.
I'm telling you, there's no will to win any bigger than his in the NFL, period.
Third stud, Kansas. Went to Kentucky and showed them who daddy was.
They had to have it too. They lost 3 straight.
Yeah.
I mean, a world where Kansas lost 4 straight. It was a big game for them. Really impressive.
Yeah. Now to the duds. Yes.
Ooh.
Are you really? You go to Oklahoma, which is a mediocre Big 12, and you aren't prepared to play a lick.
They did not want to be there.
Jimmy Dykes ripped them to shreds.
Yeah.
It's like they didn't even prep for the game at all. Didn't watch film. We're going on the road. We don't care.
Might as well been a bye week.
What if that had been Nick Saban?
They'd have been lined up to get at him because he's gotten so many of the press in his own way, the way he goes about it. The press would be lined up to get him. I mean, I've watched many games from coaching at Oklahoma those years, and in that arena, it's not that large. It's laid back. It's built back. It's not up like a lot of these. Playing away there is not. I've seen many teams come in there with good Oklahoma teams, Billy Tubbs teams, and the guy at Houston now, my good friend, I can't even think of my friend's name.
Kelvin Sampson.
Kelvin Sampson was the coach when I was there. It's not that tough a place to play, I'm telling you.
Alabama was not ready. They were down more than 30 at one point.
And getting slams everywhere. I mean, no defense being played a lick.
None.
None.
Dud number 2, Tejas.
Tennessee got after him.
Oh, smoked him.
Yeah.
And dud number 3. Yeah. It just means more. Really?
Wow.
You think in one of those Big 12 locker rooms that somebody didn't put that up there? It just means more.
You got to wonder too, with 2 Big 12 teams moving on to the SEC, did they play with a chip on their shoulder? Kind of the last year of it, our conference, people say it's falling apart. Not in basketball.
So we get to the plaster bet of the day, and I guess we have some review first.
Yes, we do, George.
Pay attention, Watson.
You won this weekend. Good.
You're staying afloat. 110 and 108. Chiefs and Eagles.
Yeah, and TCU lost their best player in the first half.
Yeah. What's the story on Miles?
His injury?
Yeah.
I
don't know. I don't think it's good.
Yeah. Oh, I hate that because he's a really good player.
He is a stud. I haven't seen the official report though, but I've heard kind of negative news from it.
Yeah. So we got both of the football games.
Mm-hmm.
And now, Watson, we're going to get right into Michael's kitchen.
Here we go.
Baylor is a fraud.
Oh, a fraud.
A fraud.
A fraud.
A fraud. And they're going to show it tonight.
You don't think they're any good?
Texas.
I don't know.
Texas looked like the fraud on Saturday.
Here's the thing. Baylor's really athletic. There's no doubt about that. Basketball ability, I don't know.
Yeah, they've got 3 really good guards, but it's going to be interesting.
Game's in Austin.
It's in Austin. I'm not going to
place.
say it's a bad pick because Texas is a good team, and they also just got ripped. And so Baylor's won. Now they won 5 straight, but that might come to an end.
I did this for you.
Yeah, I know you did. I saw that stupid grin and knew that you had something cooked up. But
isn't it great, Watson?
Get used to it, Michael.
Hey, sick 'em, baby. That's all I got to say. 110 and 109. That's what we want to see.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then in about a year, it'll be 1,400,000 and 1,300,099.
Listen, I hope it is. So tomorrow on the show, Tony Basilio will join us. what's the thing we're going to bring up? Saban rejecting the NIL request.
Oh, come on. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, we'll get into that.
They got in two guys' kitchen a little bit.
We'll get into that tomorrow. Taylor Barnett will join us. Hopefully, if he has any more predictions, it's better than what he threw out a week ago.
Yeah, that was not great.
We'll get on him about
you're
it.
not going to let that slide.
Oh, absolutely not. No. So, Watson, behave until then.
See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow. See all of you tomorrow. More chat room on Wednesday. This is big.